Hello and welcome to the Back Nine Report. My name is Carlos Torres, along with Phil Altvater. We check in on the world of golf to bring you the latest news, insights, analysis, interviews, recaps, previews. It will cover anything and everything golf. In other words, if it happened in golf, we have it for you. Fred, hi, how are you?
Carlos, there was a lot of stuff happening in golf last weekend. We had this big Saudi international thing over in the Middle East with a lot of big names from America went over there and played. We had the AT&T at Pebble Beach. And did you know, Carlos, on Sunday afternoon, even though it was a really good tournament, a lot of guys in the mix there, Jordan Spieth especially, big name, right? Brings a lot of eyeballs. They only had a 1.87 rating with 3 million viewers for the final round on CBS on Sunday. I'll bet the sponsors are screaming at the PGA Tour right now. Listen, you got to give us a better show than this, boys. We ain't paying these big ad dollars. We're not, we paid a lot of money for these TV rights. We're not getting our money's worth here. Just to give you a comparison there, the Pro Bowl, which really isn't a football game, right? It's just kind of like a little exhibition, a little dancing around out there with shoulder pads on. They drew a 2.52, 4.5 million, 50% greater than what a real live PGA Tour event did. So I bet there's a lot of ad execs and CBS execs that aren't too happy with the PGA Tour this week. And Carlos, that comes back to our next point. We're going to talk some more about this stirring the pot up. Phil Mickelson, what he said over at the Saudi Arabia, and the super tour that Greg Norman's putting together with Saudi money. Oh, the pot is stirring. It's stirring.
Well, yeah, we talked about Phil last week. The Saudi International is what we could call the thread of a breakaway Saudi Golf League. And maybe up to this point, okay, we have to say it's at the highest it's ever been, because there's multiple players that have stated they have signed non-disclosure agreements. So that could be the beginning of something going. But arguably, the player most closely associated, publicly at least, with the aforementioned Super Golf League is Phil Mickelson, who not only, like we mentioned, said that, and I'm going to quote him, pretty much every player in the top 100 has been contacted at some point. But also, he launched a scathing attack on the PGA Tour over their media rights. That's what we reported last week. He stated, and I'm going to quote him again, he said, their type of greed is beyond obnoxious. And then he said that the tour forced him to pay $1 million to access his shots. The PGA Tour have so far stay quiet. They've taken the low ground, and they say they're declining to comment so far. But one player who took it, and this one, he never stays quiet, but who could dig at Mickelson comments was Brooks Koepka. He commented on Instagram, DK, which means don't know. If I'd be using the word greedy if I'm Phil. So that stirred it up. But then it seems like Koepka isn't the only one who has taken a shot at Phil. With Golf Channel analyst Brandel Chamblee, who has no shortage of words and no shortage of controversy himself, he produced a highly charged piece for the Golf Channel accusing Mickelson of being, and I have to quote it because that's what he said. He said that Phil is a highly paid ventriloquist puppet involved in sports washing operation. So this wasn't the only shot that Chamblee fired, Fred, with him claiming that Phil cares a lot about his media rights, but apparently not so much about human rights, and that it fell to him to control the PIP fund. He would rename it the Player Irony Program and give the whole $40 million to Phil for this unconscious utterance. So, Fred, I'm going to leave it there for now. But it seems like, Phil might have been saying some things one way, and we're learning this from Chamblee. So far, is one person saying one thing, the other one the other way. The PGA Tour has not said anything, but I tend to believe a little bit more of what Chamblee. I mean, I didn't read the whole thing that he said. It was a long piece, but I tend to think that Chamblee is onto something.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And for Phil, he just can't keep his mouth shut. He's like Trump, he's just got to be out there saying stuff. Phil would be much better off if he just be quiet. And instead of doing this stuff out in the public, do it in the back room or do it quietly or off to the side or something once in a while. It makes him look really bad. Okay. This makes him look really stupid. Isn't he the guy? Well, I know he's a guy because I was there a few years ago when the FBI grabbed him off of the 18th green and took him downtown and was questioning him about Billy Walters inside a trading scheme. Phil was never convicted in that, but he had to give back $900,000 of profits that he made in that deal. So I don't know how he kept out of being convicted or being charged by the SEC, by the FBI, but he didn't. So when it comes to talking about obnoxious greed, Phil is not immune to that, okay? The other part of that, he says, well, I had to pay $1 million out of my pocket to get those media rights. Well, it wasn't Phil paying that. TNT broadcasted, they had to pay the broadcasting rights. Chamblee makes that point in his well-written piece. And if you haven't read it, go to golfchannel.com, look it up. It's a very good piece, very informative. And he covers a lot of points down through that. And so we pointed out last week, Carlos, and Brandel pointed out in this piece that when we were discussing the Saudi-backed Asian Tour and Phil's comments about the media rights, that every sports league owns their own media rights. It couldn't be any other way. If not, they would be competing against themselves with large communication companies like CBS, NBC, Fox, Golf Channel would not have any incentive to pay the big bucks to broadcast tournaments with these big name players in them. They have to be able to control that. So it was Turner that paid out the money. But here's Doug Ferguson had a really good argument today, and I was looking at that, and I said, "Oh, this kind of brings it. This makes sense to me." Phil was accusing the PGA, and I'm quoting Doug Ferguson here, accusing the PGA Tour of obnoxious greed while in Saudi Arabia to collect more appearance money from Mohammed bin Salam's investment fund than he had to repay the U.S. government from his Dean Food stock trade. If Phil wants instant and seemingly endless riches, sign up with the Saudis, unless that's not really what he wants. Doug begins to wonder if he wants top players to join him to get more leverage to get what he really wants from the PGA Tour. He's really just stirring the pot. This sounds way more like Phil Mickelson to me. Phil Mickelson doesn't want to go play internationally. He doesn't need the guaranteed money. He's got a lot of money. He's wasted a lot of money gambling in the past. And I don't know what his gambling deals are today. Maybe his wife doesn't let him gamble anymore. I don't know. But Eli Callaway had to bail him out several years ago with a big deal before the Ryder Cup, if you remember, because Phil was broke. He had so much gambling debt that Eli Callaway had to pay it and sign Mickelson to a long-term contract. That's why he plays Callaway today. So this is not new stuff for Phil. He's always doing something, always stirring things up. So the tour is not the evil empire. And Phil even took shots at the tour, said they weren't paying out enough of the purse. Well, they pay 55% of the annual incomes out in purse money. They pay a big chunk more to charities. The rest of it goes into the retirement plans and to operate the tour. And, put some money back for a rainy day like they needed over the last couple of years because of COVID, shut things down. So they're not the evil empire. Besides that, the tour is owned by the members. Phil should know that. He's a 30-year member, for goodness sake. It's his tour. It's going to be his big retirement plan that he's going to be getting from them. So all the stuff he said really doesn't make a lot of sense unless you think like Doug Ferguson says, maybe he's just trying to use that for leverage to get more guys on board and go to the tour and say, hey, if you don't do this, we're going to do this. Well, I think the tour will call his bluff. I really do. And I think Phil, I don't know. It'd be surprising to see if he actually does sign on with those guys to see. But so I don't know, Carlos. It's just a lot of, there's a lot of activity. we've been talking about this thing now for what, a year and a half or well over a year for sure. And, it's a little bit more with Greg Norman signing on. He's got an inside track to these guys. They've got a lot of money, $300 million to throw around, but you can see it does take a toll because 10 players skipping out on AT&T Pebble Beach to go over and play in Saudi Arabia for big huge appearance fees. The purse was nothing, but they didn't need the purse because they're getting big appearance fees. So I don't know where it's all going to shake out. I wish Phil would just kind of keep quiet a little bit. I think he's kind of looking bad doing all this stuff, Carlos.
I think Doug has a point, and I'm going to say that, yes, we've always said that there has to be something Phil is trying to do, and definitely he might be, and we mentioned this last week, he's the top high-profile player not playing in the quality sense or ranking at the time, but right now he's the top attraction because wherever Phil, we said this, Phil speaks, everybody listens, everybody watches. That's why we are making such a big deal about this, because he's the one involved in saying these things about the PGA Tour. So definitely he wants to have some other players to come and join him. Now, my only question to Doug is what Phil wants? Because money is not the thing. What else could he want from the PGA Tour? He has everything but a US Open. Money, I don't think so. I mean, he right now, what else would he want from the PGA Tour? That would be my only thing. What is he trying to accomplish? Maybe he does want to join the Super Golf League and get something there, but he knows he can't do it on his own and go there right now, even though he could do it right now and not do anything else, because on the PGA Tour, he is the PGA champion, reigning PGA champion, but will he ever win another major? I don't know. I'm not going to say no because he did it out of the blue last year at 50 years old, but the same thing goes to, would this be his actual retirement plan? But for him to actually, maybe there's something behind that him and the Super Golf League with Greg Norman have been talking about, because like I said, there is 10 players that already have signed non-disclosure agreements. What have they talked about that they cannot talk from the Super Golf League? Phil has to be one of them. What does he know? What does he want? He needs other players to start pushing the envelope into what maybe would be a joint tour, or maybe would be something else. Maybe it's that thing of the joint tour that we've been talking about that he might be wanting to be part of. I don't know. I really don't know what he would like or what is it that he's after, because like you mentioned, he has plenty of money. That's not the driver here. But what is it? I don't know. Now, one thing that Eamon Lynch from Golf Week also said, and I'm going to quote him, he said, at his best, talking about Phil Mickelson, at his best, his words suggest that what he possesses in self-regard, he lacks in self-awareness. I don't think that he lacks self-awareness. I think he's doing this on purpose. And yet the thing is that he has not responded to either Brandon or Eamon Lynch's comments. So silence is golden, right? So we'll see what this goes, what he's thinking, what he's going to come back with, because I don't expect him to be silent for too much longer. So Fred, I know this is not the end. We're just continuing on it, but definitely this is going to go somewhere pretty soon, because the plot thickens, like you're saying. This is boiling, and when that happens, it's going to boil over somewhere, and we're going to have some news for everybody here.
Well, they're in Phoenix this week, so the big names aren't really there. So I don't expect much to come out this week. But next week, back in LA, the stars will be out. The media will be out in full force. The big names will be there. I would look for some more stuff to come out there around that tournament before they start heading to Florida for the Florida swing. So I think and March is coming up quick, and the Asian tour begins in March. So they want to have a marquee player on board at that first event if they're going to have one. So I'll bet the pressure is really starting to build on these guys.
Definitely is. And wherever Phil Mickelson is going to play next, that's where we're going to find out, because that's the first question they're going to be asking him is, what about that? So anyway, thank you for joining us. It's always our pleasure to bring you the latest in the world of golf news and information. Remember to subscribe to our channel so you can keep up to date with all the videos that we're publishing. Thank you for joining us.